Hello, I'm Hannah, and this is Hannah's Books, here today with, instead of Tag Tuesday, Bag Tuesday. That brilliant moniker was suggested by Aaron Facer in his video last week talking about the beautiful leather bag he carries with his daily needs, including some specifically bookish inclusions. His video was inspired by Bill Rutenberg, who gave us a fascinating tour of his bookish travel bag. And after Bill, Steve Donahue began what I can only imagine will be a lifelong and detailed, continuing saga of the bag he carries when he leaves his neighborhood, knowing he's likely to return to Hyde Cottage with many more books that he has when he takes off on his adventures. It's fascinating to me that, to my knowledge, no women have chimed in yet. Most of us have been carrying some sort of bag for many years, mostly because women's clothing has traditionally been devoid of usable pockets. You men out there who carry your wallet, keys, and phone in your pants pockets, well, at least until fairly recently, it was almost impossible, if you grew up wearing clothes designed for people with childbearing hips, to carry anything more than a subway token and that $5 bill my mother called mad money. Anyway, until late last year, I've always carried one of two bags. Often it was a very small bag that held essentials like my phone, keys, and a small wallet, plus a slim paperback book and my e-reader. Notice that I said I carried both, and that's because I spent way more than a decade worrying that my Kindle would fail me right at the moment when I found myself with a few minutes to read. So far, so good, but I still always travel prepared for the worst. Most recently, I've carried this wonderful bag I bought in the northwest of Ireland, the Donegal region. I assume I'll carry this bag quite often again in the future, but right now I need something a little larger. More on that in a minute. At other times, I used to carry a, quote, book bag, which for me meant a relatively small backpack that distributed the weight of family groceries, or school books, or library books when I was carrying them home from the library, or back when they were due. I also used it to carry my laptop and all my clothing on short weekend trips, etc. During high school and college, I carried cheap canvas book bags or nylon book bags that seemed to wear out almost every year. Maybe 25 years ago, my mother gave me a lovely brown suede book bag. Nothing elaborate, but beautiful and strong. And the bag lasted me through grad school, through the job market when I was interviewing at universities for a job as a history professor, and then through the later years when it was filled with cloth diapers and with my child's books and toys and homeschooling supplies, etc. I have loved this bag to pieces. I've sewn it back together in spots sometimes, and my son, who's a much more talented fixer of things, has worked on it at least a time or two as well. It was terrific as a library bag. But honestly, it was kind of inconvenient when I had to access something quickly. I had to take it off my back before opening it up, then rummage into its depths. And now it's falling apart again, enough that I'm nervous about putting heavy things in it regularly, like library books or laptops. And my needs have changed recently. Enough that the combo of small person backpack no longer really works for me, or at least it isn't working right now. So I sought a different option. When my mother gave me a check for the holidays to buy something I wanted or needed, I thought it might be perfect to spend it buying myself a new bag. One which would fit my current needs a little bit better. And here it is, a medium zipper tote from Portland leather in the color coldbrew, picked out from the, quote, almost perfect section rather than their full quality items, although I don't see anything imperfect about it. I've completely fallen in love with this bag, but more on that in a minute. So, how do I use my bag? To be honest, I rarely leave our neighborhood now due to my spouse David's brain cancer and the resulting mobility limitations he has, his weakened immunity, and the fact that COVID is something we both really need to avoid right now. For reasons I won't get into, neither of us drive. Sometimes I'll walk or take a bus to the library or to a grocery store, and I don't carry this bag then. More about what I do carry and use in future editions of Bag Tuesday, but in general, I really only use my quote everyday carry when my spouse and I are heading to the doctor's appointments or physical therapy appointments, etc. And although it hurts a bit to acknowledge this fact, I also need to have my bag packed at all times in case we suddenly find ourselves on the way to a hospital emergency room. So, let's go through it. In the front pocket, I always have a mask. Right now, I have 2 N95s, as well as one mask that the medical facility my husband goes to as visitors to change into. Although it looks like a surgical mask, it offers a bit more protection. The other thing I usually stick in this super accessible front pocket is my phone, assuming we're not going to be in a very crowded place. If we are in a crowd, I'll instead stick it in the bag's internal pocket. The bag has straps that fit over my shoulder with enough drop that I can wear it over a coat, but that's short enough that it feels really controlled, even if I'm just wearing a t-shirt. The bag also has a strong zipper on the top, but if I'm in a space that isn't crowded, I often leave it unzipped. I mentioned that there was an interior pocket where I occasionally put my phone. I also tuck my hospital badge in here as well. The facility where David sees his doctor is one of the major research facilities in the country, owned by the U.S. government, and they're pretty rigorous about screening everyone and everything that enters the gates of the campus. The pass allows us to get through a little more quickly. I also have a handkerchief or two. Today, a plain linen one, as well as a bandana print flannel. And a mechanical pencil. And because I have very dry lips and skin, I usually have some lotion and my favorite chapstick, Burt's Bees, which is headquartered in my home state of North Carolina, I think. My favorite of their lip balms is the pomegranate flavor, but I think this one is just the regular original scent. The side pocket is interesting. I'm not sure if you can see it. It's loose and attached to the bag on each side with the same rivet that holds the back tote handle. And I really like this because I can slip our accessible parking tag behind the pocket and let it hang down the depth of the purse without getting lost. And the little hook over the top hooks on the edge of the pocket. When someone gives us a ride somewhere, I can reach in quickly without having to search for what I need. Across on the other side of the bag, on the top, there's a little loop. Can you see it? That snaps. And I have my keys hooked to it, which includes 2 different library cards, as well as this charm I've carried on my keyring for years, the end of a silver spoon. Very recently, I started carrying a larger wallet. This one reminds me of a wallet my grandmother used to carry. It too is from Portland leather, in the slightly lighter color of cognac, which is quite smooth compared to this pebbly cold brew. Just like the full bag, it closes with a zipper. And inside, there are card slots on one side and card slots on the other, as well as room for cash, or papers. On one side, I keep a few bills, my license, credit cards, public transportation card, etc. On the other, I routinely carry my COVID vaccination cards, and then stick in whatever important paperwork I get handed, usually little cards that list the time for next appointments or something like that. In the center, there is a zippered compartment, which would be great for loose change, but I use it to hold a small barrette, since I'm in the process of growing out my hair and my bangs often flop over my eyes, and another lip balm. And I usually also have a pen in here, although it's not in the zippered compartment. It's here, just in case. Sometimes I also carry my spouse's little bag. For years he's carried keys and wallets, etc. in his pants pocket, but now he wears sweatpants to make it a little easier to get dressed and to keep him comfortable. He's got a collection of subtle colors, so he can wear a dress sweater with them, or even a blazer and tweed cap to make him look professional when he wants to. But the pockets in the sweatpants aren't totally dependable for his large phone, etc. So we acquired this very, very cheap crossbody bag. It has this funny little label, I don't know if you can see it, that says, "Life teaches the trend of fashion." David is not thrilled with this fashion statement, but he acknowledges that it is practical. I like that it's light enough that I can stick it in my bag whenever it might be helpful. I won't take you on a full tour of its interior, except to show you the lovely wallet that he's carried for decades now. A silver cigarette case, I think, repurposed for IDs and credit cards. And also his keychain, which is an old coin that's been carved out, leaving this beautiful tree. Okay, I also have a small, somewhat weird pouch, which is perfectly shaped to hold charging plugs and cables for my phone and Kindle, as well as an extra pair of earbuds. I know I'm behind the times, but I still just use the now old-fashioned kind with a cord. Then comes the bookish parts. My Kindle and the other book. This one I've been reading aloud to David during times when we're waiting in an office or in the hospital infusion center. The lovely book by Margaret Wrinkle called Late Migrations. Most of the entries are little short essays, almost prose poems, and we both really loved it. And I'll talk about it more in some future bookish video. I also have a blank book with a closure, just a piece of leather that slips in, which I use for taking notes during appointments. I started it in the summer of 2017 when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, but soon it became the place I jotted down what the neuro-oncologist and other doctors were saying about David. There's always a pen stuck in as a bookmark, so I can grab it quickly whenever I want to start taking notes. I don't always carry it, but I have a small little notebook where I make unrelated to-do lists. Right now, it's tucked into this random little pouch I knitted with yarn left over from a larger knitting project. While I don't have it in here now, I sometimes carry a small knitting project with me as well. Not a sweater or anything like that, but a sock if I'm working on one, or a lace shawl that doesn't take up much room. And finally, I keep a small cloth scarf tucked in my bag, one that I can wrap around my neck on a chilly day, or even spread over my arms and shoulders when I find myself inside an overly air-conditioned building. Because I have a form of arthritis, especially in my hands, which gets worse when my hands are cold, I usually have a pair of thin gloves with me. During the winter, I often carry these flannel-like gloves, and I love that they snap together to help me make sure I don't misplace one. In the warmer weather, I often have fingerless cotton ones, like these Macbeth mitts, which always make me want to wash my hands. Well, I think that is it for today. But on some future Bag Tuesday, I'll give you a tour of my library bag, possibly including whatever books are in there right then, as well as a tour of my knitting bag, including my notions pouch with my most used knitting tools. Down in the description box, I'll leave a link to the place where I bought my bag if you're interested. Well, thanks for joining me here today and humoring me as I rummage through my purse. And thanks to Bill Rutenberg, Steve Donahue, and Aaron Facer for inspiring me to make this video. See you soon next time here on Hannah's Books.